Okay, let's talk about Mahomes' rushing ability, more specifically his playoff rushing ability, because yes, it is different. You look at his rushing numbers. In the regular season, he averages right at 20 yards per game, and he has 3.9 rushes per game. That's what RPG means in this instance. But in the playoffs, it jumps up to 29 yards per game and 5.4 rushes per game. And in the Super Bowls that he has played, 43 rushing yards per game and 7.3 rushes per game. Part of me wondered if that Tampa Bay game maybe inflated the numbers, but no, the Tampa Bay game actually, he had the least amount of rushes, only 5 in that game. So let's get into the film, because essentially what Mahomes does is, well, let's talk about it. This play was an iconic one. You see him take the snap. First, you got to note the situation. It's a 35-35 game with 3 minutes left, so absolutely huge part in the Super Bowl. Mahomes was actually playing on a bit of a hurt leg at this point. However, you're going to see him step up. He realizes he has room to run. And right here, I mean, you kind of feel like if this was the regular season, he would just fall forward past the first down marker. Hey, we're good. We're in field goal range. But again, this is the Super Bowl, and this is kind of what he does in these big spots. You see, he is ultimately going to take a hit, but more or less, he does kind of go down at the end, but more or less, this is something that you see from Mahomes in the big games that you just don't see in the regular season. The reality is the Chiefs know that the only way their season can end before January is if Patrick Mahomes gets injured. As long as they have him, they're going to make the playoffs, and if they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to be a tough out. That's just the situation. But this play is a good example of it, where it's going to be a 3rd down and 4 right here. This is in the Super Bowl. I think people forget how long it took that Chiefs offense to get going, because it was so good towards the end of the fourth quarter and in overtime, but it took a while. And in fact, they might have only had 6 points in the first 3 quarters, but this was a play that helped them get some of those points, where it's a 3rd down and 4. Mahomes takes the snap, and again, in the regular season, what's going to happen right here? You see, he could try and put his shoulder down and pick up the first down, but that requires taking a hit. Really what he probably does is drifts towards the sideline, see if he can throw it, and if not, okay, I'll just step out of bounds, or really probably fire the ball out of bounds, whatever, we'll punt. Not ideal, but it is what it is. However, this is 7 minutes left in the 3rd quarter of a Super Bowl that they're trailing in. That is not what Mahomes is going to do. Instead, he's going to just lower the shoulder, and he's going to pick up that first down. Again, he's a big guy, and there's always the threat of you don't want him to slide late and then get a penalty, but obviously, if it's a Super Bowl on a 3rd and 4, you have to just make the tackle and hope you don't get unlucky with a penalty call. So that's a part of it, is Mahomes is more willing to take some of these hits, but that's obviously not all of it. There's also something like this, which is the design runs. So I believe this is actually the play after that one I just showed you, or if it wasn't, it was right after that play I just showed you, where you see they're going to kind of say, hey, okay, now that we're rushing, let's keep it going. You see that the 49ers are playing man coverage right here, and what the Chiefs are going to do is fake a handoff. Mahomes is going to keep it himself and go towards the top of the screen. And what's so interesting about this, I think, is that they don't do this in the regular season, right? So as a defense, there isn't a ton of tape on this, but you know that they've practiced this a lot because they still execute it really well. As you see, Mahomes takes the snap, he fakes that handoff. Nick Bosa is right now currently tackling the running back. He's completely fooled on this. And for Mahomes, it's man coverage, so the 5 players in coverage are back covering, and Mahomes kept the ball, so they have to make sure they cover. But then he's able to run forward, and again, not even thinking about sliding on that play. You're down in the Super Bowl. You got to make something happen. That's exactly what he did. So this is part of why the Chiefs go up to the next level in the playoffs, right? There's a legitimate thing we can point to. It's not just, oh, they try more. There's legitimate stuff of, yes, this rushing really helps and can open up the offense. Of course, it can also mean that you have to pay attention to Mahomes on the rushes, which means the running game is better. Of course, there was this kind of famous or infamous play, depending on who you were rooting for, the Nick Bosa play on 4th and 1. It's kind of crazy to think with this Chiefs reign of terror that has been going on, how, it's all talk about the three-peat. They could have very easily lost this Super Bowl had Nick Bosa just made this play, or it's not fair to put it on him, had the 49ers been able to get a stop here on 4th and 1. Mahomes is going to fake a handoff, keep it himself. You see how Bosa is going to just completely crash in to try and cover the running back, who is now not there. And again, because I'm not even sure if this was ever going to be a passing play, but the receivers are at least set up as though it could be a passing play. But I'm sure the first option is if you have a chance to run, that's what you want to do. You see the closest 49ers players are looking at other guys. Mahomes is going to pick up the first down. He does slide here, okay? He's not going to just take hits to take hits. If it's only going to get him an extra yard, he'll just slide. But, still, nonetheless, I mean, definitely a huge play for him, and that essentially won them the Super Bowl. They had to get some other stuff going, but that's what they were able to do. It's one of those things where in a big spot like that, if you're the Eagles, you kind of have to just know going in that, this is a possibility. This is something that could happen. And they'll do it surprisingly sometimes too, right? They won't just do it on a 4th down and 1. This situation, it's a 1st down and goal right here with 10 minutes left, but you're down in a conference championship game. It's still an important drive to make sure you score on. You see what they're going to do is they're going to fake a handoff to the left. What they've done, and this is why the Chiefs are so smart, earlier this game, they had the same formation, but both tight ends who were in the backfield would run out towards the right, but they would still run it towards the left. So you would assume that it's going to be a run to the left on this play. However, instead, you see the running back go towards the left. Mahomes now keeps it towards his right, because usually what happens is either running back goes to the right or running back goes to the left, and that's how you have to adjust. Running back went to the left, so that's what you notice, but now it's the quarterback with the ball going to the right, and you see pretty much everyone's accounted for. Matt Milano actually does a really good job at doing what he can to get in position, but it's just not enough because, again, Mahomes not an easy guy to bring down. So really good stuff there by the Chiefs. And, again, it's just an added thing in the playbook. Now, I can turn this into I didn't know if I wanted to make this like a preview video or just a thing to talk about. I kind of am going to merge it at the end. We can talk about the Eagles and how well do they defend something like this, because I think that's interesting Eagles obviously have really good run defense, but the issue is when you do this and when you do it in creative ways and when you don't do it often, it's so hard to stop. This is Jaden Daniels on this play, faking as though it's an option play. I believe this is a fake. It might be supposed to be an option play, and he's just going to improvise. However, when you see, again, looks as though he's about to pitch it. Right here, though, he stops and realizes he has a lane to go move forward. The reality is, even if you have a great run defense, and in this situation, Commanders not the best offensive line. The Chiefs have a better offensive line, even if they have a couple weak spots. You get an extra blocker, and it just makes rushing that much easier when you do that. As you see, Daniels is able to rush in. He picks up a touchdown. You just have to assume this is, again, it's always an advantage in a game like this, in a playoff game. If I'm the Eagles, I am practicing this stuff. I'm not going to say I'm treating it like you're playing Lamar Jackson, but I'm kind of treating it as though, yes, the quarterback rush is a part of their game, and yes, you have to put an extra blocker out there. You just do. So for my running tally that I mostly just do for fun for these, I am going to give the Chiefs a +4 here. The only reason why it's not a +5 is because the Eagles are really good at stopping plays like this, but nonetheless, I mean, it's credit to Mahomes. Most teams would be +5 against him and just how Andy Reid calls this stuff. The one advantage you have, though, if you're Philadelphia, is you've seen him do this enough. You shouldn't be going into this saying, Mahomes doesn't really scramble that much. They like to have him throw. He doesn't really, he doesn't take the hits, and they don't do designed runs for him. You've seen enough of these big games now, including playing in one just a couple years ago, where you should know this is something in their tool belt that they will use. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on all of this. What do you think about the Mahomes scrambling in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl? Let me know your thoughts. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.